Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to remind council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of the meeting, the Council for the Township of Madawaska Valley deems it advisable to hold a special council meeting as allowable under Section 3.6 of the Procedural Bylaw 2018-117. This meeting will be held electronically under Bill 197, the COVID-19 and Economic Recovery Act 2020, Schedule 12, subsections 238, 3.4, and 3.5. We'll start with the adoption of the agenda for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. The recommendation is that the special council meeting agenda for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 be accepted as presented. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Palmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest this morning?
No. None.
None here.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll move to bylaws. First, we have Bill 197, Procedural Bylaw Amendment, and we have a report by the CAO. Sue, did you want to speak to that before we do the actual bylaw?
Unless councillors have any questions, I just tried to outline the Bill 197, Section 12. I thought it was easier to just attach Section 12 of the bill. The bylaw as presented on the agenda, it rescinds the previous amendment, allowing for electronic participation under the Provincial Emergency Order. Now, I did not include, as presented to you, the Section 243.1, Section 1, and that was the section that references an allowing proxy vote. It is my recommendation that this would require a further discussion about the impact and challenges to implement proxy voting, allowing a member of the council as a proxy to act in another councilor's place when they are absent. So the amendment before you does not include that, which is why I attached section Schedule 12 for your perusal. We need to adopt this in order to proceed with the rest of the meeting.
Right, so this allows us to meet electronically outside of a state of emergency, which understandably under the circumstances that the world is in, this is something that does enable us to continue to function well as a council without putting anyone at any particular risk that they may feel very uncomfortable accepting. Sue?
I just further wanted to add I believe the copy that you have, I'm just going to double check. I had a typo. Want to make sure it's not on here. Yeah, so on page 15, number 6 says during the emergency defined in section 1 of this schedule. The reference to emergency is not part of the amendment.
Right. So when we come to the bylaw, it will be as amended because this was what was publicly presented. So if you look at Schedule C, number 6 now reads, meetings may proceed even though any or all members and or the clerk are participating electronically. That's what it will say as amended. It will not have any reference to an emergency, correct?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions of Sue at this point? As she did mention, we can come back to have a discussion and a bit more information about this proxy voting option that the province has provided, but we don't have a lot of details on that just yet. So it is something that we can bring back for your consideration, and then we just do another amendment. Any questions on the amendment before us?
No.
So we're good. So then with that, I'm going to move to Bylaw 2020-70 regarding an amendment to the procedural bylaw number 2020-32. The recommendation is that Bylaw 2020-70, being a bylaw to amend procedural bylaw 2018-117 with respect to electronic participation in council meetings, be given first and second reading this 4th day of August 2020 as amended. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2020-70 be given third and final reading this 4th day of August, 2020 as amended. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Is there any further discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, that allows us to continue today. We don't have any delegations or presentations, so we will move to the confirmation of the minutes. Our first set of minutes are the special council meeting minutes of July 7th, 2020. And there is an amendment that needs to be made to those minutes. So just give me a second to bring it up. I'm gonna find them. There we go. Okay. Was doing something else and I did not. There we go. Okay. On page 22 of the minutes, if you look at the top of that page, this is in reference to the application for a retail store at the Bent Anchor. The motion in the minutes reads that that being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, be given third and final reading the 7th day of July 2020, and it says it's carried. What it should read after as amended is be given first and second reading this 7th day of July 2020, and it should not say carried because at that point we did have a recorded vote, and the recorded vote is in the minutes there, and then at the end of the recorded vote it should say motion. Oh, Gwen told me to. Defeated. There, that was it. I knew it was a D word. So that would be the amendment there to correctly reflect what actually happened in the meeting. That's one of those copy paste things that happens from time to time. And the other amendment is on the next page, page 23. If you recall, as we were going through the minutes of the various meetings that we were approving, Gwen asked that she would make an amendment to identify that they were meetings that were held electronically. So all of the approvals, oh no, sorry, this is under bylaw. It's a bylaw that was amended. Sorry, I had something else in my mind for the next one. Okay, bylaw 2020-66, if you look in the minutes, first and second reading were done as amended, but the third and final needs to say as amended as well. I was getting ahead of myself. So those are the two amendments that need to happen in this set of minutes that I know I noticed and staff is concurred with. Now, was there anything else in this set of minutes that council found that any other concerns or amendments that needed to happen? Anyone? Okay. So could I get a mover for the recommendation that the special council meeting minutes for July 7th, 2020 be approved as amended? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the amendments or anything further on those minutes? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have our public meeting minutes of July 7th, 2020. And this again, where this is what I was thinking of. When we amended minutes in the last session, we amended them to include electronic that the meeting was electronic and there was a notification. This set of minutes also needs that amendment, and I've spoken to Gwen about that and she's going to include it. So I would ask that the recommendation be that the public meeting minutes of July 7th, 2020 be approved as amended. It will be to include identifying that it was an electronic meeting. Could I get a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there anything further on these minutes? Any other errors, omissions, concerns? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? And that's carried. Great. Is there any business arising from the minutes? I'm not seeing any business. So we'll move to municipal reports. First, we have the works projects completed or underway, and I believe now, is Hillary going to speak to this? Originally, I had Mike, but Hillary is back. Or maybe Mike is going to speak to it. Hi, Welcome.
How's everyone this morning?
Everything's going good. Did you want to speak to this report, Mike?
Sure. Okay, so you guys all have the report there. Just let me find it. So I don't know if you want me to go through every item one by one or just ask if anybody has any questions.
Are there any updates since the report, or are everything's good? Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mike? He's given us an update on what Public Works is up to. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So thank you for the report, Mike. We appreciate it.
Perfect.
It's all good, man.
It's all good, absolutely. Hillary, was there anything you wanted to add at this point?
No, Mike did a wonderful job on this.
Absolutely.
Good work.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if there's nothing further, I think we're just accepting that as information. Sue, do you want a motion on that, or can we just accept it as information?
Just accept it as information. I would ask that the operations supervisor also call in for the Olszewski portion of the meeting and close.
Okay.
Will do.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Okay. We'll move on. We have a bylaw breakdown for July 2020, and I do believe we have, there we go. There is Corey, our bylaw officer, enforcement officer. Corey, did you want to speak to this report?
As you can see, the biggest problem, I'll explain it to you. In May, we've had 2 dogs defecating on the main street. I had an issue with that with one person. That's been rectified since. That was what's going on there. Property standards, we've had nothing until June, which is an absolute wild number of illegal trailers being put in properties on waterfront properties. I'll explain the residential zoned areas, which is against the bylaw. So there's been an absolute explosion of that around the township. It's not in just one area, it's all over the place. We get complaints. I've got 4 more in the last week that have complained about people having illegal trailers. There's one actually right in Barry's Bay I'm dealing with as of tomorrow. Then we've had 2 complaints of dogs being on the beach at Wadsworth Lake. People bringing them to the beach, letting them run in the water. So I've dealt with that issue. It was 2 individuals. One was from outside the township that came in. And then one was from somebody just passing through. So I had to let the dog go for a quick swim, but they're decent about it. So just a verbal warning given. They took care of the dogs immediately. And I've had 1 barking dog complaint. We've had 1 property standards complaint of people cutting grass. And as of last week, we had our first landlord tenant complaint since we started. I think that's 2 years ago. We actually got our first complaint about that. So that's being dealt with as we speak.
Okay, thank you. Does council have any questions for Corey about the report? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councillor Bromwich.
Just one question here about illegal trailers. To explain to the people that are listening, how do you consider it illegal? If they bring a trailer down and permanently establish it at the cottage, or
on a residential lot or a waterfront lot in the township of Madawaska Valley, you're allowed to have a trailer on a lot for 3 years with a septic once you apply for a building permit, so you have somewhere to work on that property. If it is not going to have, if you're not applying for a building permit, the trailer can only stay there for 3 years maximum with a septic. It has to be a septic, it has to go through the building department, septic department to have that on there. In a rural area, that's a different thing altogether, but it's the waterfront properties and the residential areas that are zoned in this township. That's the reason why I'm talking illegal trailers being put in place. And there's also some places that people are putting 2 trailers on 1 lot, which is only allowed by the bylaw 1 lot trailer for the 3 years.
Thank you, Corey.
All right, so it's been a while since council has looked at this bylaw that refers to trailers. I don't recall the previous council looking at it. Maybe it's something we should be just having a review of to make sure that it accurately reflects what our needs are going forward, and also to get some staff input into this, because if part of this enforcement, some of this makes sense, but part of it may not make sense. It may be very difficult for someone with just 3 years to purchase a property and get enough money to build a cottage. I'm just wondering, is this something that council would maybe just like to take a review of this bylaw and just make sure that staff is comfortable with the wording in it and that we are good with the wording in it, because it's obviously going to be having some major impacts on bylaw enforcement and probably building permits and septic permits going forward. Would we like to review this? Councillor Bromwich?
Yeah, we had I think back 2 councils ago, we had an issue with illegal trailers on a certain campsite. And this bylaw, I guess, was established way back then, hasn't changed much. I think it'd be a good idea to refresh everybody's memory on this and at least notify the public what we expect them to do, instead of there's any questions after 3 or 4 years. Well, we were never told this by anybody. So to bring it to the foreground now, I think was going to save a lot of problems in the future, because I think you're going to tend to see more and more people coming up with trailers and doing this with the way the coronavirus is going right now. So I think it'd be a good idea to maybe update the bylaw a little bit, or at least discuss it openly.
Right. Any other members of council? Would we like to review this? Councillor Poplinsky.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I think that we, as suggested, I think we need to inform the public, and I would suggest that we use the local paper and also our internet website. And I think it's really important because there's a lot of new people coming in, and that's one of the things I think we're all experienced, and especially during these trying times. So that would be a good place to start.
Okay, well, does anyone have a concern with council reviewing the bylaw just to make sure we're comfortable with all the wording, and also getting staff input on the impact of how enforcement is going, if there's any issues, and any wording that maybe in the bylaw needs to be changed? Because we have
I concur.
that review. That's a good starting point. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone saying no. Sue? I think
I can, with council approval, that if you want to move forward, I would suggest we put it on our first meeting in September and have staff bring some recommendations as well as a review of the bylaw.
Okay, I think that would be great, because that's an opportunity for discussion and an opportunity maybe to refresh the bylaw or update it slightly, depending upon what staff input comes back with for us. Okay, so if we could maybe just ask staff to do that. You know what, Sue, I just realized we never discussed how we're going to proceed. Now, when do you want to do that under, do we have like new business? I'm just looking here, sorry. Unfinished business?
Sure.
To talk about proceeding with council and committee or special council meetings.
Absolutely.
We do need to have a discussion about how we're going to proceed now that we can also proceed electronically in terms of the format for how council will proceed. So why don't I just make a note of that under what, unfinished business?
That sounds good.
Sorry, just give me a second so I don't forget when we get there. Find out what council's will is. There. I'll highlight that. Okay, sorry. Keep track. All right. Was there any questions for Corey on the bylaw report? He's obviously been very busy. Questions, concerns, comments? I think we're good. I'm not seeing anyone who wants to discuss that one further. So maybe what we'll do is we'll move to the 2020 fire breakdown to the end of July 2020. If you wanted to speak to that one, Corey.
Okay, so far we've had 51 calls in total between the 2 stations. We've had quite a few, they're not just wildfires, but also calls during the fire ban. May, when we were at the fire ban, we had 7 calls. July, we've had 6 calls for people that aren't disobeying the ban. They're usually having large campfires or burning during the day, which I caught one person doing, burning an actual brush pile during one of the windiest days we had. On top of that, I've probably answered about 20 other calls for oversized fire pits. During the day when I'm sitting in the office itself, they're not 911 calls. All the calls you do see on that sheet are 911 calls. A lot of people seem to don't understand what the total fire ban means. A lot of times, we got signs, 30 some permanent signs throughout the township. That's my biggest issue with that. We've had one structure fire in July, which wasn't arson. So they'll be taking over that investigation. And other than that, we've had 2 alarms, which is to the one senior center due to the humidity, set it off, but that's been rectified. And other than that, it's been pretty quiet. Like we've had no lift assist, we had no MVCs in July or June. We had one back in May, but other than that, it's been pretty reasonable so far this summer for the most part.
That's good. Does anyone have any questions for Corey on the fire calls? Not seeing any questions on that. Thank you for that information. If there's nothing further on that, we'll move to a review of the fireworks bylaw. Again, if you would like to speak to this, Corey, first.
This is coming up because we've had a few people concerned the way fireworks are set off and the length of time and all during the week and everything. So people have brought it to my attention. I said, there's nothing I can do up till 1 o'clock in the morning. If they go between 6 a.m., 1 a.m., they're within their right. People have concerns of going to work during the week. They said like they don't want a complete ban on fireworks not being used, but they're wondering if something, the few people I have spoke to, probably about a dozen or so, may actually have spoke to it, the complaint has to be shortened up or make it earlier. So just brought up the discussion to see what council, if they want to leave the view the bylaw, just direction they'd like us to follow. Sort of thing. So I'm just sort of bringing it up there. I've called, there's a bylaw from Horton Township and the Hastings Highlands. Hastings Highlands got quite a strict bylaw, but I'm not exactly sure what council, which way direction they want to go, or just sort of look to see if they want to review it, or they just want to leave the status quo to sort of have sort of an idea that we work with the public and work with council to make sure everybody's understand what's going on.
Okay, so right now we do have controls on fireworks. When there's a total fire ban, they're not allowed.
That's correct.
That's one of our controls, and our other control is the noise bylaw, and they're not allowed between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. Those are the 2 key controls we have.
That's correct.
Okay. Council, anyone want to speak to this? You've been given some information, and I do believe you were emailed the bylaw from the Township of Horton, which is a fairly comprehensive and detailed bylaw. This was brought back for discussion because we had a piece of correspondence that council said they'd like to have a look into this. Anyone want to, Councillor Bromwich?
I'll jump in here if I can. I'm not a cottage owner, and all I know is when people do come up here to their cottages, I think most of the people really do respect their neighbors and respect the fellow cottagers in the area if they're full-time cottagers. I think maybe these insurrections on the fireworks, it's probably people that don't really live here that have come to visit that don't understand, the routine of the cottagers. I wouldn't like to see too much of a change because that kind of puts a lot of people expect to come here and blow off fireworks. Hey, we're here, have a great time. And I don't think they bother too many people, but it's the one out of 100 that maybe do it. Wondering if maybe the cottagers associations could take a little responsibility and maybe just put out a little pamphlet with their newsletters, like have some respect for your neighbor. In other words, peer pressure, maybe doing their own little job of enforcing a bylaw that's already standing in our books. I don't want to see too much restrictions on cottagers. We're trying to attract new people here. I don't know, maybe Mark would feel a lot different. He lives on the lake, so I can't really say but that's the way I feel generally about the cottagers, that we should welcome them and allow them to have some fun. But the ones that are abusing this noise, and I can see why, you're blowing off fireworks in the middle of the week at 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's not acceptable. So I'll leave it up to the rest of the council.
Actually, bylaw could do something about that once it's down. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? At this point, Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one because I feel generally 99% of the people are responsible. It's just those 1 or 2 people that you get that will send them off late at night or during the week on days that you really wouldn't assume are firework days. But you know, I've got a concern about putting another bylaw in because I think Corey already has enough to enforce. I think, you know, I agree with what Councillor Bromwich says too, that we do want to attract people. We want people to come up here. A lot of these cottagers are coming up on their 2 weeks off in the year and they enjoy it. So one of their first things is to get some fireworks and set them off. And as I said, 99% of them do it responsibly, and but there are always those few. But whether it's worth creating a separate bylaw just to deal with those few, I'm not sure about that. So I guess I really didn't help in that, but
No, that's fine. I think you are both expressing, you know, our sort of.
it's a balancing thing, you know,
Yeah.
sort of between fun and too many regulations and too much fun, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the challenge is how far do you regulate? As you can see from the Township of Horton bylaw, it's comprehensive regulation, which I would assume also puts a certain amount of liability on the municipality. If you're regulating and you don't enforce, then you may have some liability. And we know we only need 1% to end up in trouble. Just 1% liability. Councillor Schulist.
Yeah, true, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think that because it's connected to our fire ban policy and all that, because really it has to do a lot with the safety, right? That was one of our concerns and everything else. But if there's a fire ban, so you know, that fireworks is out of the question. So that kind of protects that safety part of it. So I'm fine the way it is. If we find in the future that there's other situation that's come up, maybe we should bring it up. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I think that moving forward, I think that we should agree to visit this situation in the next little while. I don't mean in the next week, but perhaps at the end of the summer, we'll have a better handle on knowing exactly what the complaints are, and perhaps we could come up with a little better solution to some of the issues. And I agree, we don't pass more laws that we can't enforce. But if it need be, then we will do it. But I really think that we should, let's take the summer and keep look at the statistics and the issues that and the challenges that our staff have right now in enforcing and keeping some sort of control on it. Because I think we do have to have control. And I would be all inclined to want to revisit this, and as I say, in the next 2 months or at the end of the summer. And so we'd be all set then for the new year. It may give us some more chance to look at other jurisdictions' manner of dealing with this as well. And we may pick up something of value there. So that's what I would encourage.
Okay, so I'm from council in general, I'm not getting the sense that you want to take this to the extent, the comprehensiveness of the bylaw that you received from as an example from the Township of Horton. But potentially, I think maybe we could ask Corey to keep track of when it is fireworks related, be it noise related to fireworks or fireworks in a total fire ban, just so we can be aware of the kind of calls that you are getting. And also if there are any complaints that come in to members of council about fireworks, if you could forward them to, now Sue, do you want them to go to you or to Corey?
They can come to Corey.
Okay, so if we're receiving complaints, if we could forward them to Corey so that he's aware and then can compile the, any complaints so that he can report back to us. That'd be okay, Corey? Could you just give us an update? Maybe even go to do it sometime in October or November so that we've covered the Labor Day long weekend and we're well out of the summer and early fall, which are still times when people use their cottages.
Most certainly I'll do that.
Maybe even the first meeting in November.
Sounds good.
Okay, and then we can just see if council feels this is a significant problem that needs to be addressed, or if it's, more a case of possibly contacting the lake associations as Councillor Bromwich suggested, and just asking that they maybe send some positive messaging out to their members to be mindful of their neighbors, and that some of their neighbors actually may have to work the next day. and, you know, may have small children that they've put to bed, which is always fun when the fireworks go off and now the small children are awake again. So there are some things that could potentially, you know, be done that would be positive and reinforcing as opposed to prohibitive and more legal remedies to any complaints that we do have. Any thoughts from council on this? So
Sounds good.
So we're good to leave this to be reported back to us from Corey in November. And Sue?
Might I suggest, from what I've heard, I don't think we're looking at a fireworks bylaw, but could I ask council that we take this opportunity to bring back the noise bylaw? Your noise bylaw is 9 years old.
Yes.
And it might be a good opportunity to go through that. I did read that, for example, Hastings Highlands has taken the opportunity to add fines to their noise bylaw, and they reviewed a noise and fireworks bylaw. So I do think with what we've heard, our noise bylaw could specifically mention fireworks, and we could use the information that Corey has and see how we could wordsmith that into our noise bylaw. But it is 9 years old, and it was pretty much a replica of what was in 2006. So I think maybe it would be a good opportunity to bring that back.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And we could also maybe get some staff input into that bylaw and look at possibly crafting that with an update so that we would have one going forward that would be better able to be implemented in a way that's going to still have positive outcomes, because we don't want to end up in a situation where we're pitting neighbor against neighbor because somebody, you know, had a bit of noise. It becomes a very big enforcement issue. So that sounds like a good idea. If council have any concerns with that, time to review the noise bylaw.
No.
Councillor Bromwich.
Sorry, I keep jumping in here. I just asked Corey if I could. Is there a frequency of noises, illegal noise making in the township? Do you find it a very heavy job here to monitor this? Or is it frequent, Corey, or is it very, very seldom we get noise complaints?
The noise complaints usually start on the long weekends, usually we get them. Probably usually Saturday night or long weekends are the biggest issue, between like from blowing horns to people shouting to, you know, like I said, the odd fireworks. That's usually our highest point. Most people are compliant, like everything else. 98% of people are good, which takes out one or two. But like I said, it's usually the Saturday night, rarely the Sunday night of a long weekend, but mainly the Saturday night of a long weekend, not even the Friday. It's usually Saturday when it's time to wind up, but they start pocketed here and there. It's not even one specific area. It seems to go back and forth, depends, I guess, whoever rents the cottage, or if somebody else doesn't realize the rules. I usually speak to them and they're pretty compliant. When I do speak to them, nobody's ever given me a hard time. They apologize and say they apologize to their neighbor and say, as I say, so most people are really good about it. I've never had an issue with anybody actually confronting me or anything. So, and they do, a lot of people said, I'll go over and say, apologize to my neighbor. I didn't realize I was doing that.
Thank you. It's just that lately, in the last couple of months, I've been hearing a lot of talk about loud mufflers on cars, young lads bombing up and down the roads with no mufflers on their four-wheelers. Even in the wintertime, the snowmobiles, some of these guys got racy setups on it and they just blast by it. So I think we should look at the noise bylaw, maybe update it, because it seems to be becoming more frequent. I think even the police are getting phone calls about loud mufflers in town. There's people complaining on Facebook about it. So I think it's in our best interest maybe to update our bylaw. I think we should do that. Thank you.
Okay, I think that sounds like it needs to be a fairly comprehensive review of the noise bylaw. So maybe staff would also like to take a look at some other noise bylaws that are out there that maybe refer to some of the things that Councillor Bromwich has just mentioned. So, you know, we'll give you some time to do that review and get back to us. No specific meeting, because I'm not sure how long that's going to take. Is that okay, Sue? You can bring it when staff is ready and we'll review it and look at our options. Okay, Corey, we're good with that?
We're good with that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we will do that. All right. So anything else on the fireworks bylaw, the question of a fireworks bylaw? We pretty much dealt with that. Okay, we'll move on to the staff report from the CBO regarding our building permit statistics. And I'm not sure if anyone has any questions. I think that's more for information as well. Oh, Sue, did you want a motion on that last one? Because I noticed there were 2 options listed.
Yes,
Or
please.
is it just direction?
Well, I did change it to just add in that, see if I go back to it here. Sorry, it won't open. I had amended it to say that council accept the report review of a fireworks bylaw as information and staff bring back the noise bylaw for review.
Okay, so do you want a motion for that?
That would be great. So it doesn't, so it tracks the action item.
Okay, so if you could just read the recommendation.
That council accept the report review of a fireworks bylaw as information and staff bring back the noise bylaw for review.
Okay, could I get a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Great, that's carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that we are documenting what we're asking staff to do. Okay. So we'll move to the staff report from the CBO regarding our building permit statistics. I don't see anyone on from the building department. Were there any questions from council on the building permit statistics? They can be passed on to staff and we'll get you answers. Anyone with any questions, or are we just we're accepting it as information, giving you an update? Okay, I don't see any questions on that, Sue, so we'll move to the next item, which is our 2020 water meter upgrade program. And I see Janice has joined us. And she's provided this report, so we'll let Janice connect her video and
My video not connected?
Not at the moment. Can you turn it on?
Yeah, it is. Okay, here. There we go.
There you go. There's Janice. Okay, Janice, did you want to speak to your report?
This is today's actually the first day. We're actually well underway. We have about 30% of our total customers who have already booked their appointment to change. And they have 2 installers in the area. And they are, like, so far, things are working really well, smoothly, quickly. Few calls from customers who, wanted more information. We're a little bit concerned about the safety aspects. But information did go out to everybody, covering, including their Neptune's protocol. And all in all, I think so far everything is going really well, on schedule, and hopefully we'll stay that way.
Excellent. Well, you provided council in the agenda package with the information from Neptune that went out.
Yes.
Aware of what our customers did receive, and that there are protocols in place to ensure that their installers are mindful of COVID-19 and our customers are kept safe. Right. Is there any questions from council on Janice's report, or on the, I guess, day 1 of our new install of new meters? It's kind of early to say how's it going, but any questions from anyone on this? I'm not seeing any questions. I think, we're really pleased to see this going forward, Janice, and thank you so much for the oversight and for providing us with a report and keeping us up to date.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you on that one. I see the next one is yours as well, so you might. The next report is status of property taxes to June 30th, 2020.
Yes. Okay, so we have now resumed adding penalty to our accounts. The total of $18,177.62 was the total amount of interest that was not added due to council's decision to not add penalty due to COVID. So that was for the months of April, May, and June as set out in the report. And so now we are, again, we've sent out arrears notices. We've added penalty on, so we're sort of going back to normal in that regard. So we had not really, as was discussed with council a couple of months ago, we were not actively collecting tax arrears. And I believe that that is why our arrears are back up to where they were, you know, or not quite, but higher than they have been, because we've not been taking any measures to collect. So.
Okay. Does council have any questions for Janice on this at this point? Councillor Poplinski, is your hand up?
I do have a, not so much a question, but just a point that I'd like to make, and that we need to continue to do what we can to see what we can collect. I think it was good that we could do what we did to help the people, and now it's important that they understand that the taxes need to be paid, because we've got, unfortunately, our expenses on the other end are not going down. So I would encourage that initiative then to continue to see what we can do and recapture as much as we can this year.
Okay.
Okay, so is council good with us directing staff to start to work at collecting arrears again when they have the opportunity to do that work? Okay, I'm not seeing any no's. Sue, did you want a direction on that? Do you want an actual recommendation, or can we just, I'm not seeing anyone say no, so I'm suggesting that council would like to see staff, when they have the time to work on arrears, that they do work on arrears. Sue?
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor, we don't need a recommendation. Staff has proceeded with, as previously directed, we have now proceeded again with the arrears notices, getting them ready to go out.
Okay, great, thank you. Just in reference to the amount that Janice has identified as being the interest, that the penalty and interest that we have not collected, we should keep that number with our COVID expenses, because this is a loss of revenue that we have accepted due to COVID. And if there's any sort of formula funding that also considers the actual costs that we've incurred or the revenues we've lost, we need to be able to identify to the province and the federal government that we do have this revenue loss, especially as it's within a small system of customers. We would very much like to see if we, well, no, wait a minute, this would just cover our taxes. So yes, so if we could just make sure that we are aware and have those numbers together, if there's ever an inquiry about us identifying some of our losses due to COVID. Because we will have one as well for water and wastewater. And that would be the small system of customers as well. So we've got to figure out how we're going to let the government know that we have had these losses. I would hate to see us just get funding based on population. That's not necessarily going to help, especially when you consider the population being smaller here. So staff is doing that. They are identifying expenses due to COVID, but this is definitely a loss of revenue due to COVID. Okay. I know you guys are doing it, but I'm just reiterating. Yeah. In my mind, we need to make sure we're keeping track of this.
Yeah.
You'll get a very short period of time in which to respond if anybody asks you what are our losses due to COVID.
Okay.
Thank you, Janice. That's very helpful. I think, you know, you were doing an excellent job of getting people on payment plans before COVID, and you brought the arrears down. And I know it seems like you've been set back and you have to start over again, but yeah. You know, we did have to be mindful of people's situations during COVID, and I know that you do a great job of working with people to ensure that they get back on track with paying their arrears.
Well, thank you, and we'll get started on that again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Janice.
All right.
there anything further then on that? There's nothing further? Then we'll move to new staff hire, junior accounting clerk, temporary leave. And I believe, is Amanda with us? There's Amanda.
Hello.
Amanda, did you want to speak to this?
I'm very shadowed here. Okay. So as you're aware, one of the staff members, the junior accounting clerk, has requested a leave. She will be away from us for 1 year. Due to the intricacies of the details of her job and the duties that she performs, it requires at least 2 months of training so that, you know, we keep up with our details of the entries and making sure everything's posted properly. So we posted the position for 2 weeks on social media and in the local newspaper. We received 10 applications. We interviewed 4 applicants. It was a score-based interview process. So with the interviewees, we combined our scores, and the top score was for Rachel Atmansky. Rachel has been in the community for since she was born and raised here. We all know her. We've had a lot of working relationships with her. And so she has accepted the position and she started today. So we're starting to train Rachel now. So welcome, Rachel.
Yes, welcome, Rachel. That's great. We're all pleased that you were able to find someone to step in and train because Laura has quite a significant role in the finance department, and we want to make sure that things continue smoothly as she takes her time that she's allowed to take. So any questions from council on this? Are we good? Any concerns? No?
We're good.
We're good. Thank you, Amanda. That was great. Glad to see that staff has found someone to cover Laura's leave. Then what we'll do is we'll move on to the statement of revenue and expenditures ending July 31st, 2020. And Amanda has provided us with our revenue and expenditures and some notes on some of those expenditures. Now, Amanda, how did you want to go through this? Do you want to go through it page by page?
Well, I've provided
quickly,
some
if nobody
notes.
has questions.
Yeah, well, I provided notes of items in the footnotes of each page of items that I thought might, you know, raise your ire and you may want to have some answers towards them. So they're all at the bottom of the pages. And I just thought, you know, if any counselors have questions above and beyond what the detail that I've provided, maybe we want to start there and just allow the counselors to ask some questions, if that's okay.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go through it by page number in your agenda for council. So does anyone have any questions on page 63, which for Amanda would be page 1 of the report? Okay. Did everyone find it? Any questions on page 63? Not seeing any. How about page 64? Sue?
May I suggest, because the printed copy, I noticed is just slightly highlighted, but if you look at it electronically, we can see the highlighted areas. Can I suggest that possibly you just speak to the areas that are highlighted and possibly so they recognize, like, so on page 63, we had the transportation services as well as the Ontario Recreation. So the grant transfers funding from provincial federal agencies has been delayed, and that's why that difference. Funding for beach accessible swim chair was the $10,000 difference there.
Okay, so do you want Amanda just to speak to her notes and then
Well,
if there's any
I
questions?
think in fairness, yes, if I may, sorry for interrupting. I think in fairness, just because most of us are working with most of council is working with the printed copy, because they're working with the printed copy, they may not have seen those highlighted areas.
Okay. So, okay, let's start then with page 63. You've just read the 2 notes on it. Again, any questions on those 2 notes or anything else? Okay. Amanda, did you want to do then page 64?
Sure. So for footnote number 3, and that would be shoreline applications. There are multiple zoning applications in this line that will need to be moved to the appropriate account. So we're working on that. Sorry, I'm just have to get a ruler. Footnote number 4, due to the nature of shoreline road allowance applications and that they can take years to close, 2020 has seen many files from previous years closed, resulting in a large amount of deposits brought into the revenue stream. So if that makes sense, you apply for your shoreline or your zoning application, and then things may not get closed for many years. And so the year that it gets closed, then the deposit is brought into the revenue line. Footnote 5, due to the global financial impacts of COVID-19, interest rates have been drastically reduced, and it is very unlikely that we will meet this revenue line target. Footnote number 6, a coding error for a PIL tax payment, and so we will be adjusting that. Footnote 7, just revenues to be moved to the water budget revenue.
Okay, are there any questions from council on page 64, which is page 2 of the report? Not seeing any. I guess then, Amanda, if you could proceed to the next page.
Sure. So I only have one footnote, number 8. So as staff works through the bank reconciliations, requests for bank charges to be reversed by the financial institution will be submitted. So they automatically apply bank charges, and then we combine them all, and then, you know, every quarterly or whatever, we submit it to the bank and they reverse it for us. So that's why it's a little higher. Right.
Okay, is there any questions on page 65, which is page 3 of the statement? I'm not seeing any questions on that one. Then let's move to page 66.
Okay, so footnote number 9, so transfers to reserves. So you'll see within each department that transfers to reserves line is 0. And it's because I have to do a manual entry, journal entry. So the journal entry will be completed by the end of August. I was just thinking I'd wait until, you know, see where we are with a lot of the projects that require those reserve draws. You know, maybe some of them may not require the drawing from reserve, and we can just record that it's not required. Footnote 10 represents 3 computers purchased and expenses towards the community safety and well-being plan. Footnote 11, expenditures include strategic plan, the asset management plan, which is delayed due to work from home situations. So I had received notification that it may be starting up again at the end of August, but council will definitely be notified when we start to look at that again. VADM financial software purchase, also delayed due to work from home situations. Footnote 12 is a year-end transaction that will be completed. That's a manual journal entry that we do. Footnote 13, it's an unforeseen propane issue of 3,300 is what I was informed by the fire chief.
Okay, are there any questions on page 66 from council? I'm not seeing any, so let's move to page 67.
Okay, so I only have one footnote, number 14. It is coding error as this expense line is populated at year end, and so that will be moved. It just belongs within the materials and supplies.
Okay. Any questions on page 67? Okay, I'm not seeing anything from council. I do have a question, and maybe if Corey is listening, he could respond to it. It's on the fire capital expenditure. It's significantly over budget. And I'm just wondering if you could highlight for us what that capital expenditure has included, because I did note in the budget, 10,000 of it was for a generator for the North Hall, and I think it was for the North Hall. And I'm wondering if that project did happen, and as well, what some of those over expenditures were.
Capital, the $10,000 for the generator for the North Hall did not happen. The 10,000 is the things to rectify what Ralph wanted fixed on the truck. He wanted adjustable shelving. He wanted the wiring moved. He wanted vents put in there. So that had to finish off what Ralph had just requested last fall to fix up the van to suit him to that point. So I've held off on the generator this year because it's going to probably cost about 15. So I thought maybe after Amanda spoke to me, I could fix it that way by balancing the capital that way instead of installing a generator. It's not a necessity for the hall this year up in the North Station. But that extra 11,000 is gone to rectify, like I said, there's a vents to go in the rescue van, the shelving, he wanted adjustable shelving put on the truck. There was a larger, I think, vent in the roof had to be done. So that's where that money went to put that over the budget. It was for the new rescue van for the South Hall.
Okay, so we had budgeted 30,000 and that was for the lights and the electrical
The
sirens.
lights, electrical, original red electrical, the compartments and the roll-up doors for the truck and the back to be redone and a new step put on the back. That was originally budgeted for.
Okay, so council just needs to be aware then that we are like at least 20,000 over budget on this vehicle to date. Is that correct? Because if it's 51,000 and that's seen here and we haven't done the generator, we are at least 20,000 over budget.
The generator is a separate item altogether.
But we had budget, okay, so we had budgeted.
I see what you're saying. Sorry, Mayor. Sorry, I understand what you're saying now. Yes, I was reading the line. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes.
We had budgeted that 10
Yes.
at 40,000. We haven't spent it on the generator, but we have spent 51,000. So we are at least 20,000 over budget
That's correct.
on that truck. Okay, so I just want council to be aware of that. We have put a significant amount of money into it already. Okay, thank you. That was my question. I just wanted clarification on that. Is there any other questions on that page from council? Not seeing any. Amanda, could we move then to page 68?
Okay, so for footnote number 15, there was no budget for it. It was the dog tags that were purchased. So that was a mistake on my part. I did not recognize that those monies needed to be spent. Number 16, expenditures are related to the Pog Lake Road construction and Wilton Drive engineering. So I just thought I'd let you know what those expenditures are for so that you know what projects are going on at the moment. Footnote 17, the expenditures include the thermoplastic crosswalks, the 5-ton dump trailer, the Kubota side-by-side and water tank, and balance owed for the roads needs study.
Okay, are there any questions on this page? Page number 68 from council for Amanda or anyone. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I guess we'll move to page 69.
So for footnote 18, it requires attention and review of the operations manager. I suspect that it is a coding error with the Ottawa Valley Waste tipping fees line. So when the operations manager receives the bill, he then looks at the monthly use of the truck runs for recyclables, organics, and what's been shipped off to Ottawa Valley Waste, and then divides it as a percentage towards the invoice. And so I suspect there's a coding error, but we will be, we were talking about it and we're gonna look into the invoices and correct that. Because if you can see, if you go down to 2 lines below that, Ottawa Valley Waste tipping, the previous year-to-date actual is 16,106 and this year's actual is 21,21. So I believe some of those expenditures belong in that line. But we just got to confirm that, okay? And then footnote 19 is a coding error and it just belongs to the transfers and grants line up above. So that would be fixed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any questions on this page, page 69 from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to page 70.
Okay, Okay, so footnote 20 is the web domain name renewals. And I believe that we've put some of 2019's invoice as a prepaid expense, and it was then brought into 2020. So it's a little bit higher this year because it should have been realized last year. Footnote 21 is Main Street revitalization funding expenditures, and I believe that project is finished. And it looks great down in Comerbear, and the contractor did a wonderful job. Footnote 22, Berry Space sign refurbishment. So those are the signs going in and out of Berry's Way. They look nice. They were painted. And footnote 23, so those are all the COVID-19 related expenditures. So we're trying to identify, sort of separate things out that we wouldn't naturally buy in the process of our operations, and just, you know, itemize them there so that should something happen, some sort of funding relief, that we can have it easily accessible for us.
Okay, so Amanda, that's materials and supplies, those sorts of things. And then I know I did ask you earlier, but I'll just to clarify for council, if you look at emergency prep salaries, it says 11,454, which is significantly over budget. And could you just explain to council what that is?
So we asked staff if they were doing any work that was COVID related above and beyond what their typical daily duties would be, to identify them as for COVID-19. And so we've just been moving them over there just for safekeeping, so that, again, if there is some funding relief, that it's easily accessible and we can apply for that.
Okay, so you know that's good. They're tracking both the hours that staff are engaged in dealing with COVID issues and the materials and supplies that are in addition to our normal usage.
And I'm sure there's more in salaries that are just going towards the departments of those employees, because it's like all encompassing the work that they've been doing, you know, and it's difficult to separate your time so much, you know, so I'm sure there's more, but we try to do our best anyways, at least for now.
No, I'm really pleased that staff is working hard to try to do that, to identify these additional costs, because then when we're looking at next year's budget, if this isn't a factor, then we won't get our numbers skewed. And also if there's funding that comes along, there will be an opportunity to document some of our expenses. Is there any questions from council on page 70? Councilor Kaplinski?
Yes, Mayor Love, I was, thank you. What I was looking at was our expenditures here for the emergency preparedness. It looks like we budgeted $1,500. Are we now reallocating certain aspects of this to other staff that we hadn't done in the past? Is that what we're doing here? Because I looked at the also there's a miscellaneous emergency preparedness for $15,000. We've got the benefits alone are budgeted $175, and we spent $1,386 already. So what it appears is that we're now allocating something a little different here to different staff. Is that what we're doing?
Yes. Amanda, did you want to speak to that again?
Oh, you can go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, so that's what Amanda was just referring to with our COVID-19 identified expenses. The emergency prep salaries line item that is significantly over budget, that's staff time that's been identified specifically for them to address issues of COVID-19. So we're trying very hard to document the additional time staff across all departments is spending dealing with COVID-19 issues. And then on the miscellaneous, as Amanda mentioned, that's materials and supplies directly related to COVID-19. So again, staff is trying to document those costs so that should we ever have an opportunity to apply for funding to get reimbursed for some of those costs, we have everything fully documented and ready to go. So these are costs that would not normally be here, but they are specifically related to COVID-19. And I think staff's done a good job of isolating them in this budget so they're not inflating all the budgets across all departments and then causing us to budget higher than we would need to next year if we don't have those costs. So that's all related to COVID-19, and you're seeing it right here in put in this small budget. So everything is over, but that's why. Did that answer it?
Yes, thank you very much for the explanation. I think it is important to document everything with the, hopefully we will be subject to having, you know, some of this money returned, but, and also for future reasons. That's why I question it, because it's, I think it's very good in compliments to the staff for doing that, because I know in the past when we've had another situation, it was only because of the good records and work done by Hillary and other staff that we were able to reclaim some of the money. So I think we would encourage the staff to continue to do that. Thank you.
Right. Okay, in relation to that budget, we also have a $20,000 capital item, which was supposed to be a generator for the South Hall and the Cumbermere Hall. I'm wondering, is that a project under the fire chief or is that a project under operations? And I'm just wondering if that project is going to be going ahead or if it's going to be deferred this year. Sue, do you know who could answer that? Oh, maybe Corey. Corey, can you answer that?
Oh, Mayor Love, I've made inquiries to have people come down and look at the generator, but due to the COVID, they're very reluctant to send me a service person. But I did find out it's going to take a 22 kilowatt generator to hook up down there in Cumbermere. The estimates I got just verbally are between 30,000 and 40,000 to have the whole project complete. Generator alone is probably going to cost about 20 grand for that 22 kilowatt generator. That's just verbal. I haven't got anybody actually come down and look, but this is just over phone calls I've had individuals from 4 different companies.
Okay.
So that's the information I got at the moment.
Okay, so it's not likely that project will be continuing this year. I'm wondering if council would want staff to ensure that that funding, I'm sure that 20,000 was taxed for. I'm not sure. Actually, maybe I'll ask Amanda, was it taxed for or is it being drawn from a reserve? Because if it was taxed for, I'd like to see it go into reserves for that project.
I believe it was drawn from reserves.
Is it? Okay, so it's just going to stay in reserves. But it looks like we're going to have to beef up the budget for that project if this is just the cost of the generator alone, from what you're finding out. Okay. Sue?
I did want to add to the fire chief's explanation that if you recall, there was still the discussion of whether or not we would have a shared generator between the fire hall and Cumbermere Hall, and or a standalone at the Cumbermere Hall, then transferring the other generator to the fire hall. So that still is a decision that council will have to make once Corwin has all of his quotes.
Okay. So is he getting quotes for both? One generator for both buildings or a generator for the Cumbermere Hall and moving the generator that's currently at the Cumbermere Hall to the fire hall? Is that what you're looking at as the second option, Corey?
Yes, it is, Mayor Love. Once I get out of that, I'll give you a detailed report and have it broke down so we can make an informed decision, a proper decision for the best for the whole buildings.
Okay. All right. So if staff could be mindful then as you're getting that information that we haven't got enough in reserves and we will need to budget for the completion of that project next year in whichever direction it heads. We don't have enough money, obviously. So just please be mindful of that come budget time, that we do add some money into the budget so we can complete the project next year. Based on the information you are able to report back to us, Corey.
Will do, Mayor Love.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad you were able to update us on that. I didn't suspect it was going to go ahead. Is there any other questions on page 70? I'm not seeing, wait a minute, I'm not seeing Councillor Bromwich. Oh, there he is. Okay. You vanished for a second, Carl. Did you have any questions on page 70? No, okay. So then let's move on to page 71. Amanda?
Okay, so for footnote number 24, which is PJY liquor and beer purchases, it's in a negative, or it's showing of 208.80, and that is a previous year rebate received from the beer store. So it's a rebate that belonged to 2019, but we didn't receive it until March or April. Footnote 25 is expenses for the rotating sign, tables purchased, and for the TSSA compliance. So we are over budget on that one. And footnote 26, that is the engineering capital that has not been completed yet.
Okay, and could we have Stephanie report at our next meeting on the engineering and when it will be completed, please? Or if it is complete by then, just so that we have that information. Sue, would you mind just asking Stephanie to report on that at our next meeting?
Actually, I do believe that was the intent. We were still waiting to see if we'd be receiving any information from the province, which is why we kind of held on.
Yes, yes, because that's going to have a huge impact. We still have our fingers crossed that we will receive ICIP funding for the arena retrofit project. And if not, it's going to be a major factor in our budget for next year. Okay, any questions on this page from council? Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you. I just wanted to, through you, Chair, are we going to consider updating that sign to a digital sign in the near future? Or are we going to consider that part of our upgrade of the arena? Because settle with the old sign for the next 5 or 6 years or 10 years. It's kind of, we're missing the train here. I'd like to see a digital sign be at least looked into in the next year or two. I think we agreed to that before, but I can't remember. I'm old, you know.
Sue.
Yes, Councillor Bromwich, there was a council resolution that staff is seeking some funding to assist in that. We are hoping through the strategic plan to make that as part of our marketing branding. That is certainly on the radar. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, because we would probably spend the cost of a digital sign repairing the existing sign over the next 5 or so years. So yes, no, it is on the radar. Anyone else on that? And any other questions on that page? Not seeing any. I guess then, Amanda, could we move on to page 72?
So footnote number 27 for Steel Hall supplies. That is a coding error and it belongs with the heat and the hydro expense lines. So it just has to be separated, some to the heat line and some to the hydro line. Footnote number 28, the capital programs on hold. Siding and structural evaluation, we're awaiting response on a grant application from FCM. So there was an email that I received about 2 weeks ago saying that we are about a month and a half away from being notified whether we will be successful for the grant or not. So hopefully, fingers crossed, and then we can proceed with structural evaluations for all the buildings within the municipality.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a super important component because it's also holding up renovations on the municipal office because we do want to have that report in hand.
That's right. So we haven't proceeded with the siding replacement on the railway station because we want that. And yes, we're looking at information for the municipal office as well.
Okay. Any questions for Amanda on that page? Page 72. Amanda, I'm not seeing anything from council. I'm wondering if you could just explain why salaries for Lakeshore Tennis is so significantly higher than the $100 that was budgeted.
So the salaries for Lakeshore Tennis. So when Public Works does any work, we attribute those small amounts down there. But this year, we also have a student two students working down at the Lakeshore Tennis Club who are taking all the memberships, and they're selling small items as well, and they're helping to keep the parks clean and the shoreline of the beach, and they're helping to clean the washrooms and whatnot. And those expenditures for their salaries are 100% funded through the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. So there will be some salaries attributed to that line, but not to this, not as large as this $3,059.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's where their salaries are going, and
Correct.
that's all offset by funding. So we're not probably over budget as bad as it looks.
No.
Nowhere near. Okay. Just for clarification for council on that one, because when you see something that's 2,951% over, you go, whoa, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are there any other questions on page 72? I'm not seeing any, so let's move to page 73.
Oh, 1 second.
Sure.
I apologize. When I printed the report, I thought I had it all, and my printer ran out of paper. So I just have to get that one last page.
I wanted to add to the previous comment about the tennis club that we had students there that are 100% funded from the grant. It's been a great opportunity. I did notice, if you look in your revenue, that we have sold $1,000 more of memberships. And a lot of that, I think, is due to the fact that there's somebody on site, and we're selling a lot more just play for the day, like or those 5-minute fee or $5 fee. So we've seen a lot of increases there. So I think it's been a really good program.
Well, and it's a great opportunity to test that out without it actually costing the municipality any money. So this is just, you know, our good fortune in being 100% funded for the students that are down there is allowing us to test this project that had been proposed without there being an additional cost to either the tennis club or to the municipality, which is good. Amanda, did you get the rest of the pages?
I'm good. Okay, so footnote 29, I just highlighted that so that you know what it is, because it says a parks expense, and that's the natural play spaces grant that we've been holding on to for many years. So I had talked to Stephanie earlier and requested that we please spend this money because it's been sitting in our bank account for many years. So I believe she has a plan for it, and hopefully that will be cleared out this year. Footnote 30, it's a little over. We purchased a pump for the pond because it needed to be replaced. It expired, it died. And that is the pond over at the train and the water. It's a little park there at the train and the water tower park. And it looks beautiful over there. Footnote 31 is a coding error. Transactions need to be moved to the Main Street grant expense line. Footnote 32, which is the $20,000 capital expenditure. The playground upgrade has been put on hold, and structural assessments are on hold. So there was some money put into that for structural assessments as well. And we are awaiting decisions on grant funding. So that's the FCM grant. And we've also applied for accessibility grant for the playground. So fingers crossed that we are successful there. Footnote 33, payment of June billing for all school boards has been delayed till September. So it's just a little lower than previous years. That's what it is. So,
Okay. Does council have any questions on page 73? I'm not seeing any questions. Let's move to page 74.
okay, so down in Mad Valley, footnote 34 is a deposit on fireworks purchase and the virtual Canada Day expenses. And that again is grant funding.
Okay, does council have any questions on page 74? And again, I'm not seeing any questions on 74, so we'll move to 75.
So I don't have any notes on there if council has any questions.
Okay, so I did speak, these are the 75 and 76 are the water and wastewater budgets. And I did speak to Amanda about, you'll note water system debt retirement, 88 cents, and in wastewater, it's got 747. So she's going to check into that. And Amanda, could you explain what it could be?
So it just might possibly be transactions from previous years that the payment was made and now it's being realized within this year.
From back, from bills?
Yes.
When we had debt retirement.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing I asked Amanda to look into is the utilities, because the water system utilities seem to be a little bit high. There's only 25% of the budget left, but wastewater has 60% of the budget left. So they seem to be a little bit low. And I just have asked her to verify that all the utilities have been posted to the appropriate account.
And it does look like that.
Yeah. So Amanda's going to look into that just to make certain that's been done properly, because it is odd that our wastewater system utilities would be, you still have 60% left at this point in the year. That's you know, that would be great, but I don't know. She's going to look into that.
Yes.
Are there any questions from council on page or on page 76, which is the water and wastewater budgets? Not seeing any questions on either of those pages. So and page 77 is just the summaries. So do you have any comments on where we're at, Amanda, in terms of the summary? Is it too early to tell?
Well, I think it's a little too early to tell, just because our budget is passed late and then projects don't get started until now or near the end of the summer. And everything has been delayed due to the global emergency. So but we're all trying hard to stay within our budgets. Staff is being asked time and again, please recognize no overtime, no extra expenditures that may not be required this year. Really keep those pencils sharp and try and come in under budget, because 2021 may be a very difficult budget year if you listen to what's going on in the news. So yes, but our cash flow is stable. We're doing good. A lot of the residents had paid their taxes in the spring already before everything happened. Many of them pay in full the first installment. So right now we're good there. And there is some funding that has been announced for the provinces from the federal government. And we're just waiting on an announcement from the Ford government to identify how they will be delivering that money to the municipalities to offset some of this lost revenue and some costs. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a great summary. Any final comments or discussion from council on our update on revenue and expenditures? Thank you, Amanda. Councillor Bromwich.
I just wanted to say through you, Chair, to Amanda, thank you very much for making this such an easy report to read.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Just want to say good job, Amanda. And I think your comments about watching our expenses moving forward because we don't know what's around the corner. So I think we have to be very, very cautious. So please continue to do so, and hopefully everything will work out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. No, well done, Amanda. I do want to compliment you on on this report and how you gave us the footnotes. It made so much of it easily explained and understandable to read. So I do appreciate the work that goes into going over it and producing those footnotes for us.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move on then, and we'll go to request for bench at cemetery. And I'm wondering, Sue, were you going to speak to that?
Yes, through you, Chair. We had received a request to place a bench, and it's at the end of a plot. It is at the end of the plot map, which would not be an issue. I did have to contact BOA. We had concerns as to whether or not we could charge care and maintenance fees as we do around tombstones, because we do have to maintain the grass and whatnot in that area. It was confirmed that we cannot charge a care and maintenance fee for that because it is not part of the marking of the grave itself. A picture was attached for you to view. It is granite, so it does have a long life. There would be no expectation of council having to replace it. I would suggest that in a thank you letter to the family for the donation, if council approves the request, that I would include in there that it would be up to staff future discretion if it became dilapidated or whatnot, that the family would be notified that it would have to be removed at that time. Having spoken to Campbell's Monument, they're saying that the life of such a bench could exceed 25 to 35 years.
Okay.
There had been future staff direction to ensure that there's brushing that happens there at the site. And I do believe the operations manager has been speaking to Chris about that. So it's timely in that we could do that simultaneously.
Okay, any discussion from council? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mary Love. I'm just wondering, right now, I don't think we have any sort of guidelines. This bench would be a nice addition in the cemetery. I have had some interest expressed by some people in the community of wanting to donate other types of structures, bench type structures. And of course, I wasn't able to answer the question whether what was allowed and what wouldn't be allowed. But I'm wondering if we should look at the policy, and perhaps we may need to, I don't know what it says right now, so I don't know what is allowed and what isn't, but I think we need to have a look at it. I am getting more interest from people as it becomes more known that we do maintain the cemetery and that it is open for people to buy plots. So if we could do a little review on that, have someone on staff prepare something for us, and we can have a look at it and moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Sue, could you do a review of what our policy says, if there is any policy on that? Sue.
I do think it's all encompassing with the review we're presently doing of our donation policy as a whole. We have had, and we're keeping track of some of council comments, some of staff concerns. I think we have to include anything that is donated to the township, when they contribute towards equipment, when they contribute towards, let's say, the beautiful benches that we have through town, the wooden benches, the planters, anything like that. I think we do need to be cognizant of future maintenance, future care, and how we can include that in our policy so that it's clear when you make a donation if there's an expectancy of maintenance, of replacement, is what we're getting most of now. And we even are looking now at when we had previous projects of planting trees, for example, in the area, when they're done in memory of someone, is there an expectation that you'll replace the tree in 10 years if it's, infected, or if it gets blown down or damaged? So I think it's a bigger issue, and I would like all of that to kind of be either discussed and or mentioned in our donation policy.
Okay.
Does that kind of address what you were speaking of, Councilor?
Yes, I believe it does. And I think especially related to types of structure, because it could be something that would require a lot more maintenance, some things more than others. And I think if we have it a little more cut and dried in the policy, it'll make it simpler for people and simpler for everybody for maintenance and so on moving ahead. So that would be great. I look forward to having that discussion.
Okay, no, that sounds like a good plan. Certainly a granite bench that's going to last 20, 25 years. We have less concerns with this donation moving forward than some things that could be donated to the municipality that would require significant maintenance, have short lifespans, and then is it going to be expected that we would replace something that's donated once it has outlived its usefulness? So yes, it would be a very good idea if staff could bring that back to us. Does anyone on council have any concerns, or are we generally in agreement that we would like to see that policy updated as well? Not seeing anyone saying no, or so yes. So if you could please proceed with that as well, Sue, whenever you're able to bring that back to us with some suggestions from staff. Okay, if there's nothing further, do we need to have a recommendation to accept this bench?
Yes, please.
Okay, did you want to read that recommendation?
Yes, through the chair, that council accept the donation of a bench for the Cumbermere Methodist Cemetery, and that staff send a thank you letter to the family for the donation.
Hey, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion on the recommendation? I'm not seeing any, so all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next is an update on our community safety and well-being plan, and I guess I'll turn it over to Sue to give us that update.
Yes, unless council has any questions, it was just to advise where we were at. Because of COVID, we had not met and what the plan was. Previously, council had been made aware that we had a deadline of trying to complete a plan in conjunction with the other municipalities by January 2021. We are advising that that has changed to July 1, 2021. And Mira, the consultant that had been hired with shared cost, all the municipalities that partake in our group, has moved forward with a strategy to have some SurveyMonkey consultation papers go out that would be available online and in print, with availability, I believe, for September and October. So just in case you see some surveys, so that you're aware what it was.
Okay, any questions from council on the community safety and well-being plan at this point? I'm not seeing any. So thank you for the update, Sue. And we look forward to seeing the outcome of that basically next July. Okay, we'll move on to correspondence information. First, we have a letter from the County of Renfrew to Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development, dated June 26, 2020, regarding the Eastern Ontario Regional Networks, or EORN's Gigabyte Project proposal. So Warden Robinson is seeking support for EORN's Gigabyte Broadband Project from the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development. The Gigabyte Project hopes to provide 1 gigabyte per second to 95% of residents and businesses across the region. Any comments or discussion from council on that? Again, this is super necessary as people are trying to work from home, as students are looking at what school is going to look like, for some of them being online. We need to fill in those gaps. And in reference to those gaps, then our second email is from Craig Kelly of the County of Renfrew, dated July 31st, 2020, regarding a broadband inquiry. And so the County of Renfrew is working with a number of telecom service providers on possible sites for future wireless broadband infrastructure. And Mr. Kelly would like us to identify areas in Madawaska Valley that need coverage and any possible municipal locations for towers. Any comments or discussion from council on that? We're not certain how we would know what areas don't have service. We know there are areas that don't have service, but we don't have the capacity to identify those, I don't think. Would have thought the telecom providers would know that. Councillor Bromwich?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Is it possible that we could, I don't know how we could do this, but allow landowners out there in our particular township and neighboring townships to maybe identify possible land opportunities for these telecom towers? I understand there's going to be something like 900 towers required across Eastern Ontario before this is over with. And I don't know if people that own land or large tracts of land, say around Quadville, Palmer Way, they might have possible locations they could rent out to these telecom people. Do they know that this is available to them to apply for a proposal from the telecom companies to put the towers on their land? It's a hot topic in the local area when you see wireless towers going up, and people are kind of anti-tower in certain locations. But if we're going to have a high-speed broadband across our township and neighboring townships, we should at least be able to ask people, do you have land available that these people can talk to? It's nice to run it from the township office, but we have no idea what land is out there available. So is there a chance that we could publicize this? I don't know. I just get feelings from council on this and yourself.
Okay, so I think first off, we need to know where they're trying to site a tower, right? You did refer to 900 new towers. It was 900. And so the telecoms must have an idea of where roughly they need to put the tower, rather than us suggesting land. I think maybe as a municipality, if we could determine if we are willing to entertain tower locations on municipal land, first off, they then have to tell us where they need a tower, because that's the challenge. We don't know where the towers are needed in order to provide the service. And as a municipality, we don't know. We know we have lots of areas that don't have good service, but we don't have the information at our fingertips about exactly where they are. And in order to gather that information, we'd have to dedicate some pretty significant staff time to that. And it would be still pretty much a, drive around and see where you've got a signal. How else would we do it, right? So to me, I would hope that we would put it back on the telecoms to identify where the dead zones are, because they know what they're covering already. But would the municipality would we entertain if a telecom says we are looking for a tower location near a municipal site, would we entertain it on a municipal site? I think that might be something we could make a decision about. Would we as a council just open to entertaining that? Not necessarily committing, yes, definitely, but saying if there is one that is a possibility, then please come to us. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to committing to everything. Councillor Wilmer?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. I think the telecom companies know the criteria of where their towers should be and where they should put them. I certainly would be willing to say we are open to discussing locating them on municipal property if that's a suitable site. But we'd have to get more details when it occurs, but to at least initially to say, yes, we would be willing to help, and our properties may be available if they are suitable. But again, I'm not an expert on telecom or where these should go. So I leave it up to them to decide on locations.
Right. Councillor Bromwich?
Yes, maybe we could entertain talking with the telecom, or is Brantford County already doing that? I know Craig's asking us for input as to what's available in our township. We do have township property out in Bark Lake. We have it out in down in the Bark Lake Dam area that could be used in high ground. So maybe we can start a discussion with the telecom providers and ask them, can you tell us where you want to put these towers so we can have it? I know it's very aggressive in the city. The urban centers right now are going full bore on bringing high speed across all of Toronto. They're actually going down sidewalks, side streets right now and putting in fiber optic in front of everybody's house. And this is happening on a daily basis. They have this massive program. They're just laying fiber optic cable as fast as possible because this online learning is such a demand right now with the schools going online and people working from home. I mean, this is the new way of doing business. And we should stay on top of it at our area and at least do what we can to help people at least get into the high speed area. So could we entertain inviting telecom providers to talk to us?
Could we take an initial step by saying we're open to discussing it? Rather than by us, I think I'd rather let that flow through the County of Renfrew, let the County of Renfrew staff handle the work of engaging with the telecoms. But if we could send back a message to Mr. Kelly that the municipality is open to discuss the possibility of siting towers on municipal land, then if there is a site that is a good site, they can get back to us, having worked with the telecoms.
That'd be a good start, yeah.
Around the County of Renfrew, why don't we work with them and just say that we are open to it?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And let them come back to us with some proposals based on what's needed.
Put Craig to work, eh? Put Craig to work there.
Well, you know, they have a very competent staff at the County of Renfrew, and they can, you know, they're taking on this work, so let's let them do it.
Exactly.
Because I know our staff is pretty busy as it is right now. Sue, would you need a recommendation from council to send that message back? Sue?
No, Madam Chair, I'll just get in touch with Craig and just relay your comments and see how we can assist.
Yes. So if there is an opportunity to cite something on municipal land, have them bring forward a proposal to us and then we can discuss it. We're not opposed. We're not confirming we're going to agree to every proposal, but we are open to looking at what's presented. Okay. Everyone on council is good with that? It's kind of it comes back to us. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated July 8th, 2020 regarding COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act 2020. So Minister Clark has provided council with a brief outline of some of the economic recovery measures the province has enacted under Bill 197, the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act. Any discussion from council on this correspondence?
No.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we will accept that as information. Our next item is a letter from Service Ontario. Lost it. There we are. Yes, letter from Service Ontario dated July 22nd, 2020 regarding issuing marriage licenses, 3-month validity period, and update on the potential changes to marriage solemnizers. That's a word I don't have to say very often. Okay, so the province has amended the Marriage Act to extend the 3-month validity period for unused marriage licenses purchased between December 1st, 2019 and the end of the declared emergency to allow those licenses to remain valid from the date of the issuance up to 24 months following the end of the provincial emergency. So I think they're just trying to provide an opportunity for people who did have to defer their weddings due to COVID to have an opportunity to reschedule those weddings and go ahead with those celebrations. Sue, did you have any comments on this?
No, we provided counsel, just so you're aware. I do get quite a few phone calls concerned couples that possibly what will happen and is it still valid? Do they have to pay the fee again? So we're just including all of the correspondence we're receiving to those updates because some council members might get calls as well.
Okay. Yes, so as long as your information has remained the same, your license will remain valid. If you're choosing to marry someone different, you'll have to apply for a new one. That's a cute comment in there. All right, anything from council on that? That's just for your information. Next is a letter from the Ministry of the Attorney General dated July 23rd, 2020 regarding COVID-19 Economic Recovery Act 2020. So the Ministry of the Attorney General has provided an update on amendments to the Provincial Offences Act under Bill 197. And I'm not going to go into them, but they are there for council to read. Any discussion from council on that? Okay, I'm going to, I'm not seeing any, so we'll accept that one as information as well. The next one is a, let's see, letter from the Ministry of the Solicitor General dated July 24th, 2020, proclamation of the Reopening Ontario, a Flexible Response to COVID-19 Act 2020. And the Minister of the Solicitor General has provided an update on the continuation of provincial orders under the Reopening Ontario Act. Any discussion from council on this? Again, this is more for your information. Not seeing anything, so we'll move on to municipalities seeking blue box transitions 2023. So what you have here is a list of the municipalities seeking to transition their blue box programs from 2023 to 2025, and Madawaska Valley has been included in 2025, but we do have the option to move forward with that sooner. We'll see how the first few go and how difficult this is. And hopefully the province is going to continue to include municipalities with populations of 5,000 or less, because there seemed to be some discussion about that not happening. Sue, I don't know, do you know any more about that? Have you heard any more about that?
No, I have not. I included it for council because we were past the deadline to submit. So wanted to ensure that we got on the provincial list that we had submitted. They did confirm that if we are ready to go prior to 2025, that we have the liberty to do so. But we haven't heard any more.
Okay. I think that was just a case of timing and meeting timing and getting that resolution to them. Any comments from council on that? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We'll move to District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board regarding expression of interest, affordable housing concepts, and potential development opportunities. So attached for council's information is an expression of interest for affordable housing concepts and development opportunities issued by the District of Nipissing. There is currently a shortfall of approximately 250 rent geared to income housing units in that district. I'm sure there's also a shortfall in the county of Renfrew. So I think this is for your information, so you're aware that there is the potential for rent geared to income housing projects to be happening in our neighborhood municipality. Any discussion from council on this? Okay, we'll accept that one as information as well. Next item is a donation to Combermere Recreation Committee by Bev Hardy. So attached is a note from Bev Hardy expressing how pleased she is with the placement of the 2 chairs she donated to the Combermere Recreation Committee. We also have a picture of the plaque that recognizes her donation in memory of Jim Fitzgerald. Did this note go to Combermere Recreation? Have they seen it? Sue?
It was referred to the Recreation Committee from one of the members of the community.
Okay, I wanted to make sure they had seen it because, you know, there's a really nice job of the placement of those chairs. Councillor Plinsky.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. It's my understanding that they haven't had a meeting for several months, but it is something that will be brought to their attention apparently whenever they decide to have the next meeting. So that was shared with me, so just for your information.
Okay, fantastic. I just want them to know that she did appreciate the work that was done and the placement of those chairs. And they do look really nice. So, our thanks to Ms. Hardy for the donation. Anything from council on that? Again, that's we'll accept that as information. And move on to, next we have a letter from Maximilian Rankin. Maximilian was one of the graduating students who received a bursary provided by the Township of Madawaska Valley. And he has sent us a letter expressing his appreciation and thanks and giving us an idea of where he's headed in his career, going into computer engineering technology. So I thought this was nice. I think there's also a card of thanks from one of the other bursary recipients that is in the municipal office. You'll see it up by our mail slots. It's sitting up on top of the mail slot box. So we have received thanks from our bursary recipients. Any comments from council on this? Okay, we'll move on. Next, we have a letter from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks dated July 29th, 2020 regarding changes to temporary emergency orders for Ontario's water system operators. The Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks is notifying us that they are phasing out provisions that temporarily allow drinking water and wastewater systems to use qualified, non-certified staff and to redeploy. Okay, what's that?
Oh, I think Ashley just was just logging on.
Oh,
from-
okay.
From Aqua.
Excellent. So we have Aqua here, and the next few items are Aqua. So council, you've received this letter. I'm wondering if the Aqua staff wanted to speak to it at all. I don't know if you have a copy of that. You'll need to turn on your mics.
Sorry. Kim, you're referring to the letter from the MOE regarding drinking water operators?
Yes.
Okay. In March 24th, they just employed this emergency order. So anybody with that was not or qualified but non-certified, so like a retired employee of Aqua or of somewhere, was able to be employed or redeployed into this work field if they were impacted by COVID. And they're just simply saying they're revoking that now, or they're phasing it back out.
Okay.
Which we didn't have any issue here. So that's all that's stating.
Okay, that was good though that you had that option if you had needed to.
Oh yes, very good.
Yeah, and hopefully we won't need it. There won't be a second wave that requires it. Okay.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Any questions from council on this? Okay, I can see everybody. No? Okay. So we'll move on. Next, we have the letter from Aqua, Ontario Clean Water Agency dated June 26, 2020, COVID-19 update. So Aqua has provided an update on what's happening at Aqua in regards to health and safety priorities as the province reopens, and some interesting research on the potential to detect and monitor COVID-19 in wastewater as an early indicator of whether the virus is circulating in a community. Wow, who would have thought of that?
Mm.
Did you guys want to speak to that at all?
As far as my take on it is, any of our projected capital or major maintenance projects that were ceased earlier due to COVID are now back up and running again.
Okay.
Scott, do you have anything to add for that one? No, that's about it.
Okay, so you guys aren't at this point aren't testing wastewater for COVID. That's just research, correct?
That is just research at this point, yes.
Okay. Yes. Any questions from council on the update? Not seeing any. Okay, so we'll move on. Next, we have a letter from Ontario Clean Water Agency dated July 14th, 2020, re-notification of total phosphorus exceedance at the Barrie City Wastewater Treatment Plant. So, yeah, it's the letter's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of frustrating for us.
Yeah, I can elaborate a bit on it. That it would be related to the other total phosphorus exceedance. It was in a different area of the plant, and so it just accumulated further on in our EQ tank. And then once we had the warm weather that June brought and the warmer temperatures, we had phosphorus in that algae, and so we're going to have to clean that tank more often. But the operators have improved the process of cleaning that tank, so now it's much easier and less time. It doesn't take as much time to do it. And we've also added approximately 3 laboratory tests that can better track the state of the phosphorus in the plant. So we can
Okay.
control it quite a bit better now.
Okay, thank you, Scott, because this is a concern. This is, I think, at least the second letter in the last couple of months.
Yeah, it was May. I believe it was May or April that we exceeded the phosphorus limit. And I not to make excuses, because that's not what we're here for. We want to report these things. But again, just to remind everybody that like the Ontario guideline for designing plants is to design them that they will be able to remove phosphorus up to 1 milligram per liter. But because our plant has tertiary filters and we have better abilities, our limit is 0.2, much below what the provincial guideline is, because based on our plant. So our exceeded limit was still 0.4. So it is an exceedance. We are going to follow all the guideline or all the procedures, of course, and we're going to keep that number as low as we can. But we have a good plant to remove phosphorus as far as to keep the lake environment good and clean.
Okay, so what you're telling us is that our bar is set a lot higher than the
Our
average.
bar is set very high, yes.
Okay, so while we had an exceedance, it's not as egregious as one would think, because we're still significantly under where the bar for the average plant is set.
Right.
Okay. I'm wondering, gentlemen, if you could just elucidate for me why the sample date was in June, but it took until July 8th to give a verbal notification of the exceedance. Is there some sort of time delay in the testing, or?
Yeah, the test results are based off of the third-party results at the lab.
Okay.
So it would be like the last test would have been taken near the end of June. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but say June 28th. And then it takes approximately a week for the lab in Lakefield to give us the results back.
Okay, so that's normal. That wasn't a delay.
No.
Response by Aqua, just so we understand that things were done in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I have one final question, and then I'll go to Councillor Poplinski. We have a much higher bar than everybody else, but is it going to be a concern that we keep exceeding it? Are we going to eventually get into a position where there's going to be potential repercussions from the Ministry of the Environment or from someone? Or is it?
There would be, of course, because if it became a systematic error and it was done, if we keep exceeding it on an ongoing basis, there could be trouble. The ministry would step in and want us to have a plan to remedy that. We also work, part of the non-compliance is to find a root cause and to remedy that on our own before it gets to that point. Us being 2 non-compliances in a couple months of a period is a cause for concern for us, but it's also part of the same problem, right? We had a phosphorus issue. These things don't remedy themselves overnight. So now we are getting it under control and putting in measures to not have this happen next year.
Okay, great. Councillor Poplinski, you had a question.
I did, yes, Mayor Love, thank you. And my question is, with the exceedance of this particular phosphorus exacerbated by we had a lot of heat in May and June, extremely, some of the hottest days I remember. Would that have a major bearing on it? And if so, then perhaps after summer, we wouldn't, with normal testing, then we shouldn't expect to see it again for a while. Your comments, please?
Yeah, well, phosphorus is a nutrient which comes into the water, and it will be contained in organics such as sludge in the plant. So there's a couple things temperature will affect. One is the chemical dosage, because the chemicals will react different at different water temperatures. Just just the same as any chemical would. If you put it into hot water or cold water, it will dissolve differently. And then where we saw the problem this time was also in the EQ tank. With it being exposed to the sun, we grew algae, which is a natural plant, but the biofilm that goes with this algae growing in there raised our phosphorus results. So the sunlight and heat, definitely, it got away on us fairly quickly. So the best way to remove that is physically cleaning that tank. And so that's what we've done, and the phosphorus levels went down. But we've also added, because it used to take anywhere from 5 to 8 hours to drain the tank down to clean it. Now we're able to do it much quicker with a bigger pump and a hard pipeline that the operators have installed that pump the waste from the tank into our sludge tank. So we can do it on a much more regular basis and keep an eye on if the tank is getting dirty. It's kind of a qualitative check, if it's dirty by looking at it, and we know to clean it.
Okay. So it sounds like it was a factor, and
yeah,
you're now very aware and will be mindful of that going forward.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from council then?
Can you mute your thing when I go on?
Please? At this point?
Or shut the volume down?
Okay. Right, I don't see any. Gentlemen, you're here. Was there anything you wanted to let us know about since you're here?
No, everything seems to be working properly now. No, everything has been very good.
Okay, fantastic. Good to hear. We like to stay on top of that stuff. Sue.
Just wanted to add for council information that Neptune, who are doing the meter installation, has also included Aqua in many of their discussions. And they've assigned an employee that is the point of contact, I believe. Ashley, is that correct? I believe.
Correct.
Point of contact. So just want to let you know that the deputy treasurer has helped with that transition. And we've made sure that Aqua is part of the discussion with Neptune in case there's any issues with some of that.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, we're hoping that project's going to go smoothly, and thank you, gentlemen. We do have some invoices next, so I don't know if you could just hang around a few more minutes in case there's questions. All right. So we'll move on to correspondence action items. Ontario Clean Water Agency expenditure request and approval. Okay, lots of work orders. Work order number 1623613, which is a 5972 mag pump replacement spare. $1,726.48. Work order number 1624251, which is a WM0025972 Queen and Dunn X-Site Hydrovac Services, $1,724.35. Work order 1662969, which is 5972. That's the plant number, isn't it?
Correct.
That I'm going, I know that number. Critical alarm for Busen Tower fail, and that was $903.63. Work order 17241. Distribution spare parts, BBWDS 5972, $2,243.84. Work order 1836370. Install new prominent treated free chlorine analyzer, $5,922.73. So all of those, are they all for the water plant?
Those are all for the water plant, yes.
Okay, that was my only question. So at this point, was the new prominent treated analyzer, was that one of our capital items?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we're not off budget at this point. So council, you've got all the invoices and the backup invoices for the supplies there. Does anyone have any questions of Ashley or Scott in relation to the work orders and invoices? No. I'm not seeing any. Sue, did you want to read the recommendation? Sue's just left. Oh, no, there she is.
No, I'm here, but my other screen just, I'm trying to bring it back up. So if you can
Oh.
read the recommendation.
Okay, I'll read it. The recommendation is that Ontario Clean Water Agency expenditure request be approved for work order 1623613, 1624251, 1662969, 1792241, and 1836370. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your patience in waiting for us to get to these items and for your input on the items. Sue?
Actually, through the chair, before Aqua leaves the discussion, as part of the water meter installation, we have had a meeting about looking at the budget to see if there is room in the budget dealing with any contingency, as there may be a request for their assistance. And that was not something that we had budgeted as part of the metering project. So just want to make you aware that they have spoken to the treasurer about that. And if there is anything, we'll come back to council.
Okay. All right, yes, I guess that's an oversight on our part. But so if there is an issue with that, then we'll have Amanda bring that back to us and we'll have to address it.
Yes.
Okay. So if there's nothing further, thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Scott. We appreciate your efforts and have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much for having us.
See you later.
Okay.
Take care.
See you later.
Good job.
Okay. So that seems to have, by the way, Sue, I do like the way this agenda is arranged so that we were able to handle all of the aqua material in succession. That's really helpful. I know it means things are a little bit not date contiguous, but this was helpful.
Yes, the deputy clerk kind of did that transition to assist. Yep.
Okay, Gwen, so I'm
Placement, so
thank
Gwen.
you for that because it did make this easier to deal with and nicer for our participants to not have to wait around till we came back to it. So Gwen, thank you. I know you're behind there. All right, we'll move on to email from Teresa Hebb, president of the Renfrew County ATV Club, dated July 31st, 2020, request for trailhead. So the Renfrew County ATV Club is asking council's permission to use the arena and/or the water tower on Mahon Street for parking and as a trailhead for their event on the Labor Day weekend. They would also like to install temporary signage designating the routes. There's a list of their requests on the second page of this item. And I guess I will open it up to council for discussion on that. I do believe we have done this in the past. Do we want to have a recommendation that we're going to allow them to go ahead with this? I guess we would need a recommendation, Sue. Do you have one ready by any chance?
Yes, so hold on a second here. I'm having issues with my intermittence here with my screen for some reason. That council approved the request received from Teresa Hebb, president of the Renfrew County ATV Club, as it pertains to the trailhead.
Okay, could I get a mover for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Not seeing any, so all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so staff could, if staff could coordinate that with them, and maybe if staff could just double check when the paving on Paul Lake Road will be done, because I noticed that one of their routes seems to be going along Paul Lake Road. So that, just to make sure there's not a conflict, or to make them aware if there's going to be issues at that stage and when they have their event. Okay. Next, we have an item, Renfrew Search and Rescue Team, dated March 11th, 2020, letter of support request. So we've received this from Mr. Palubisky. He's seeking a letter of support to assemble and train a volunteer ground search and rescue team for Renfrew County. I'm going to suggest to council that we make inquiries with the County of Renfrew about this initiative, because there is some rescue capacities already provided through, I think it's the Sierra team from the paramedics. So before we get ourselves into a position where we're supporting something that maybe is not going to work well with what's already in place, maybe let's just double check a little more about this, find out some more information. Any thoughts from council on this? Are we okay with that? Oh, Mark, Councillor Wilmer. Oh, we
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree. I think we should do it that way. Agree with that.
Okay, so if staff would just confer with the County of Renfrew on this, because this is something that would be, they're have to do this for the County of Renfrew, not just Madawaska Valley, and I really want to make sure that we weren't stepping on any toes or that we were very aware of all of the information before we made this decision. And if there's no concerns, then if you could bring it back to us. Is council okay with that direction? Okay. Great. So we'll just do that for now. We'll find out more information. Next, we have a resolution from South Glengarry, re COVID-19 and long-term care homes. And just before I actually read this resolution and the following resolution are related, and they're asking for some things that are the same, but some things that are the opposite. So council will need to consider this before determining what to support. So with the South Glengarry one, the Township of South Glengarry is calling on the province to provide funding to increase full-time positions in long-term care homes in place of casual or part-time labor, and to regularly inspect all long-term care homes in Ontario. So this resolution is calling on funding for full-time positions and then regular inspections. The resolution from the City of Sarnia, it is seeking our endorsement to call on the Premier to implement a resolution that's looking to increase hours for all part-time and casual labor. So this is going in a different direction. Let's see. The wording in this resolution from the City of Sarnia suggests, I would suggest to council, it suggests that there's been some wrongdoing. It's kind of a negative wording, and that kind of concerns me a little in terms of supporting that without there being proof that there is issues with funds that aren't being used appropriately, et cetera, and so forth. So I would just offer council a caution on the second one, but we would need to decide, do we have an interest in supporting the one or the other, because they are asking for two very different things. Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just read from the Renfrew County Health Department that they're going to formulate their own plan for long-term care housing. I believe this was just announced about 2 days ago, and that they're very active in doing a Renfrew County designed in-house long-term care strategy. And I don't know if this would kind of cross paths with that. I think we should stick in-house here with our own respective area and allow Renfrew County Health Department to pursue their actions. And it might include some of these resolutions, but I think we've already got a handle on our own area through our professional health team that's been absolutely brilliant in the COVID situation. So I would kind of hold back on this and maybe allow Renfrew County Health Unit to develop their own plan and present it to us. Just my thoughts on it.
No, that's a very good point. We don't have to support either of these. I just wanted to identify to council that these two resolutions coming back to back, they are actually headed in somewhat different directions. Would council prefer at this point in time that we would just accept these as information and wait to see if something comes forward that's a little more Renfrew County oriented? in terms of our approach to long-term care. So we can just accept these as information if you would like, gentlemen, and not support either. Okay, I think I'm getting the nod on that we'll just accept each of these resolutions as information and move on, Sue. And if we do see something on long-term care coming from Renfrew County, if we could bring that to us instead, that would be something we would be looking for. Okay. Next, we have a resolution from the Township of Bonnechere Valley regarding the province's economic recovery. And the Township of Bonnechere Valley is requesting that the federal government expedite all transfers to the province for 2020 to support the province's economic recovery. Who can't get behind that? Send money. But it's up to council. What would we like to do? Anyone want to weigh in on this? Do we want to support this resolution? Councillor.
Yeah, I would support it. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, would you like to move it?
I will move it. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move that we support this resolution, moved by Councillor Wilmer. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Is there any discussion on this? I think everybody is saying this would be great. The sooner the better. Okay, I'm not seeing discussion from council. All those in favor? And that's carried. So if we could send a letter of support for this resolution, Sue, please.
Yep.
And our final resolution is from the town of Mono. And it's regarding OPP diversity training. And the council for the town of Mono is supporting a resolution passed by the council of the town of Orangeville, calling on the Solicitor General to encourage common training requirements for all members of police services in Ontario as it relates to diversity, empathy, and use of force. Council, any willingness to support this resolution? And you do have the resolution from the town of Orangeville. It was provided, which is nice to see. Anyone? Do we wish to support this? Do we wish to file it? Councillor Plinsky.
I would tend to agree with those that would suggest that we file it, because it's taking on a whole new something that I'm not so sure we want to jump into at the moment. I don't believe we have any major problems in our area, and I believe it's my understanding, and I talked to a lot of people and in the various law enforcement agencies, and from what I understand there, and I know this from my own experience, there's always been a tremendous emphasis on diversity training, and I don't think that's a major problem. So to support this resolution as it stands, I think we would be putting ourselves in a position that I don't really want to go. I believe that a lot of respect for our bodies right now, the looking after the policing, the overall system of laws in Ontario and in Canada. I would be willing to, as they say, just accept it as information at this point.
Does council concur? Will we just accept this as information at this point in time? Councillor Bromwich.
I concur with Councillor Poplinski here. Adding more work onto our police department with programs such as this could increase our cost of policing overall. And I think we pay enough at this point in time for fairly good protection and services from our OPP. And I would leave it up to them to decide what to do in our local area. We're a little bit different than other areas, and we don't have a huge crime statistic here, and I agree 100%. We should just sort of take this as information if that's possible.
Okay. So gentlemen, then shall we just receive it as information and file it? Any concerns? I'm not seeing any concerns. Okay, that's what we'll do with that one. Okay, thank you. New business. Sue, is there any new business? Sue?
Not new business, but under unfinished business, I did want to bring up about the meetings.
Okay, I've got that down there. Okay, so we'll move on to unfinished business. And our first item then is Algonquin Heights, and it's a verbal report.
If I may, I did not get a chance to brief the operations manager on this request. So in fairness, I will just state what it's about. We did get a request to the operations manager to consider allowing for brushing, and it's rebrushing a road allowance that was previously deemed to require some maintenance and some brushing. The individual wanting to brush it is aware that they would need their own insurance if it was allowed. I think in fairness to the operations manager, I would have to have him have that discussion with the proponent and then possibly send an email to council with the request, and then we could move forward.
Okay, so this is brushing on an unopened road allowance that leads to water?
It is.
That runs through the Algonquin Heights subdivision. And this is a fairly old plan of subdivision that was never fully completed and sold.
That's correct. It was called Algonquin Shores. It has now changed ownership and will be called Algonquin Heights. But it is an old subdivision that is prior to amalgamation.
Okay.
Carson Lake area, Mitchell Road.
Yes. Yes, there were a bunch of back lots there that weren't sold. So if council is good with having Mr. Kuchkowski work with the individual that wants to do the brushing and ensure that the proper insurance is provided to cover any liability of the municipality, and that an agreement is able to be brought forward in writing to council. This is basically to brush an unopened road allowance to allow access to the water to the back from the back lots. Does council have a concern with staff working on that with the proponent and then bringing this forward as a potential agreement to council? Seeing any concern? Okay, so can we leave that in your capable hands as staff? And when you have worked out all the details, Hillary, then just bring the agreement forward for council's consideration. I think we have done agreements with people who wanted to brush or open up unopened road allowances in the past. So there's guidelines there for that. Are you good with that, Hillary?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll leave that at that. And if there's nothing else from council on that, then I'll move on. So the one thing we didn't discuss when we did amend our procedural bylaw is how council would like to proceed. At the moment, we're doing special council meetings, but we have the capability to participate electronically and go back to our regular format where we would have one council and committee meeting a month and then one regular council meeting a month. And so staff is wanting some input from council. Would you like to start to do that? Let's see, so at the beginning of September. So you would then have your part of the meeting that you would chair just as usual. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, Mayor Love, I agree that I think we should try and get back on, as soon as we can. I think that we've made this system work. However, I believe there's many topics each committee we need to be working on. And it will change where things are going to be opened, and I think we should be sort of ready to go and be a little more proactive. And the only way to do it is to continue on with the committee meetings. So I would fully support that position.
Okay, Stu?
Yeah, so if I may, what staff is proposing is that effective September 1st, we go back to the meetings being scheduled to minimum twice a month, being the first Tuesday of the month for council and committee, and the third Tuesday regular council meetings. Presently, we've been doing just special council meetings as needed. So going back to council and committee would be returning to the chairs of the committees chairing their portion of the meeting. If you find it too difficult through Zoom, we could also use the option that the mayor continue to chair and then ask the chairs merely to comment in their portion. So that could be council to decide, but I think I would like the first council committee, if we could go back to trying, and I think it could work, that the chairs of their committees chair that portion of the meeting.
Yes, I would like to see that as coming back to that more regular approach. We would still have the option to participate electronically, but members of council, the chairs you are provided with a hard copy. So I'm chairing this meeting using 2 computers. We're not asking you to do that, but you would have your hard copy in front of you to be able to work through Zoom with your hard copy and chair your part of the meeting. And, you know, I think Councillor Poplinski makes a good point. The sooner we can get back to more normal operations where our chairs are engaged in their portfolios, I would appreciate it. I don't really want to chair everything all the time. And so my position to you would be, I would really like to go back to regularly scheduled meetings that are council and committee and then regular council. But I'm open to hear from council. Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, sorry.
There we are.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with Councillor Poplinski that let's do it as soon as possible. So September 1st sounds great to start doing it. I think it can work electronically, having each of us share our portion. I don't see any difficulties. We may need a virtual gavel, but other than that, no, I think it's good to get back to regular business. So I support it.
Okay. Councillor Bromwich.
I concur. I think it would be a good idea. We haven't, as long as we know how to run the meetings, we've kind of forgotten how to chair our own meetings. But I don't see any big problem with it, and it would give a more of a routine to the township business and take the pressure off you instead of chairing the whole meeting. Allow us to talk and let you have a little break once in a while. So I concur with this. Thank you.
Okay. I'll double check with Councillor Schulis to see if he has any concerns. Councillor Schulis.
You, Madam Mayor, absolutely no concern. I think we should take ownership of our profile, our files, and then go from there. I think that we've done these meetings here, and it seems like it's going really well. I know that you're not having a problem chairing in the meetings, and I think we've kind of picked up on it. I think everything will be fine. I'm very comfortable with it. Thank you.
Okay, so Sue, do you want a resolution or a recommendation, or can we just start at the beginning of September with our regularly scheduled meetings, council and committee at the first Tuesday, regular council on the third Tuesday? Now,
Yes.
There is one question I would ask. Could we consider moving the regular council meeting to the morning? Because people can watch it on Zoom. It doesn't have to be at 6 o'clock. I'm thinking that then staff is available to us. We're not asking anyone to stay overtime. Could we do meetings at 10 in the morning? Would that be okay?
No problem.
Could we make that change? Just because nobody's coming to the meeting after work anyways, and they can watch it.
That's right.
A concern with that? No, I'm not seeing any concern. So we will consistently start at 10 in the morning, the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday. And then we have our staff available. Okay. Are you good with that, Sue? Okay. So let's just make that slight change and start at 10 and do our meetings, the usual kind of meeting on the usual date. And that allows our staff to set up a schedule and to be able to do the planning for planning things. Excuse me. See, I talk so much, I get dry. Okay, so Sue, then I think that's what council would like to do, and we'll proceed at the beginning of September with that. Is there anything further around our schedule or our business that we need to discuss? I'm not seeing anything. So our next portion of the meeting is an in-camera session. The recommendation is that the meeting enter in-camera session to discuss matters pertaining to the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Section 239, 2A, B, and F. Number 1 is the special council meeting minutes in camera of July 7th, 2020. Number 2 is the wastewater plant update court file. Number 3, Lakewoods Resort update. Number 4, Ohio Road survey boundary. And number 5, staff-related human resource update, including fire department. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we will await Gwen